portion of Pinchas. And last week we learned in the end of Balak that there was a plague amongst the Jewish people. 24,000 people had died, and because of immorality, that the Midianites had sent their girls over, even though it was Moab. The Midianites came, some of the Moabites came, and Zimri and Cosby, Zimri was the lead, one of the leaders of Shimon, of the families of Shimon, and Cosby would be of the Midianite, Cosby but Sor, all right, Cosby but Sor, right, would be the head of the Midianite families, and even though they were so they were doing this. They were involved in having relations. And why this happened? Because they went to Moshe and said, Zimri went to Moshe and said, is the Midianite mutter to us? Is she permissible to us or not? And Moshe said to him, no, it's not. So then how can your wife, Tzipporah, be permitted to you? She's also a Midianite, right? So, and he falls on his face and cries because he forgot the answer, or he didn't want to answer, whatever the case is going to be. Really, the answer is that either she converted, either they got married before the Torah was given, and then she would have been converted like everybody else, or she converted before they got married, whatever the conversion process would have been. Okay, so either way, she had given up on her avodah zarah, and that was the answer. Unlike Cosby, who was steeped in avodah zarah, and that's was the situation. So now in Parsha Balak, the only thing we heard was Pinchas did it, but we never heard who he did it to. This Parsha comes to say who he did it to, and the result of what his zealous act. So he just, well, we'll come to it. He says, "Vayedaber Hashem Moshe." Also, Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron the Kohen. So Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen. So Rashi says, what's the connection to Aaron the Kohen? Why do you have to say it? Just say Pinchas ben Elazar and get it over with. So what happens? He took away my anger from Bnei Israel, because he was jealous for my. He zealously avenged my jealousy, if you will, or my vengeance. In the mitzvah, so I did not cause Bnei Israel to perish in my vengeance. So Rashi says, why did he have to go to the extent of saying Ben Aharon HaKohen? Normally when I identify you, I'll just identify you by your father's name. I don't necessarily go, actually I don't go to your grandfather's name. So two things we're going to learn. So first is the Fi Shayu Ashvatim B'Vazanato, that the tribes were making fun of or mocking Pinchas. Wow. They said, Hari'item ben Poti, Zashapitem Avi Imo Galim, Lavot Chachavim, Ragnasi Shev Israel. Did you see this Ben Poti? They insulted even the grandfather, that fattened the cows, his mother's father. So he's going on Pinchas's maternal grandfather. So he said he fattened the cows for avodah zarah, and this Pinchas, whose grandfather did such an act, he decided he was going to kill the prince of the Jews, of one of the tribes of the Jews, Lefichach. That's why Baal Katuv, the apostle, comes to say, Vayechasu acha Aaron, to cause him to have a genealogy after Aaron HaKohen, who was, of course, a tzaddik. Right? So he's saying, the rabbis say, who was he talking about? Yitro. Apparently Yitro married not only into Yitro's daughters, not only married into Moshe, but also would marry into Moshe's grandnephew, Pinchas. So his family. So that's what they're saying. Your father, named Yitro, is one who was fattening cows, and you have the chutzpah to go and kill somebody? No. That's why the Torah goes to lengths to say it was after Aaron a Kohen. Okay, so, and he says in the outscroll, so instead, they say in number 11, instead of applauding Pinchas, the people wanted to accuse him of wanton murder and protested that the grandson of someone who had fattened cows to be sacrificed to idols had the gall to kill a prince in Israel. Pinchas' father was married to the daughter of Yitro, okay, fine, like I said, called Putiel. In response, God declared that far from murder, Pinchas had committed an act that saved countless lives. Indeed, God called him a descendant of Aaron, who was distinguished for his love of mankind and pursuit of peace. And what was more, God rewarded him, appointing him a Kohen, which denoted a covenant of peace, not death. So here we have this person, Pinchas, who was a zealot. And we learned, whenever I talked about it last, that the only reason Pinchas wasn't guilty was because he got them in the act of copulation. If they would have separated and he would have then killed him, he would have been a murderer. Okay, so and that's why the court can never tell the zealot to do it, because you have to catch him in the act. So it's not this was not a killable offense, as it were, but it stopped the plague, and that stopped the vengeance of God, as it were. So that's why he's being rewarded, and that's why he's getting such an introduction. And he says, "L'chein emor," and therefore say, "Hineni notin lo et brit shalom." Behold, I am giving him my covenant of peace. And if you look at, there's a dot above the vav, and it says the vav is katia. It's a broken vav. Right? That of shalom. It's a broken vav. It's not a complete vav.
They actually show it here.
Right. So when you would look in the Torah, you'll see a split in the vav. Okay, and that is on purpose. So when I talked about this I think every year I talk about this, it's important to repeat. That way, when somebody sees it in the Torah, if they're the Baal Kriya, or if they're called the Kohen for the Aliyah, or they're picking it up, whatever the case is going to be, and so it says, "Oh, the vav is broken," it's Apostle Sefer Torah. No, it's meant to be written like that. So he says, Rashi says, "A brit shalom shtehelo brit shalom," that it should be for him a covenant of peace. Ka'adam hamachzik tova, it's like a person who is strengthening the good. In other words, God is showing, as it were, appreciation for somebody who did good on his behalf. So Afghan, so also Hashem explained that he's going to give his peace to him. So his greeting, our scroll says in 12, the pledge of my covenant should be seen as the greeting one sends to a person to whom one is indebted. Alternatively, the covenant of peace was a pledge that Pinchas would be protected from the ire of Zimri's kingsmen and supporters. Okay, so he is getting the priesthood. Not only him, but also his seed after him, will have an everlasting covenant of to be a Kohen. Tachad in the place Asher Kine Lelakav, that he got vengeance for his God v'yichaper al Bnei Israel, and caused an atonement for Bnei Israel. Okay, that's also very important. And he says, up until Archos explains, why did he get the kuna? We already have somebody who got the kuna, namely Aaron. So what are you doing? You're taking it from Aaron, now giving it to Pinchas? Well, it doesn't make sense. He's a grandson, obviously. We know that Kohen goes by family. So it says, up till that time, only Aaron and his sons had been appointed as Kohanim, and any future offspring born to the family would be Kohanim from birth. Pinchas, who was already living, was not included in the appointment, so that he had remained a Levite up to this time. With this appointment, he became a Kohen. Alternatively, this covenant was a promise that the Kohanim Gedolim would come from the line of Pinchas. Now, Pinchas will live a very long time. He's going to go through Moshe and Yoshua. You could say maybe he was young, I don't know, but he seems to live a decent life, as far as length is concerned. Yeah. So let's go on. Now we find out the names of the people. She says, "V'shem ish Yisrael v'hukeh asher hukat bin it." So the name of the man of Israel that was slain, asher hukah as Midian, that was killed with the Midianite woman, was Zimri ben Salu, Nasi of the Shimoni. Zimri, the son of Salu, the prince of the house of the fathers of Shimon. And so Rashi says, "B'makom sheyachas et hatzadik l'shvach yachas et harasha l'gnai." In a place that you give a genealogy to the tzaddik, that's a praise. In a place that you give genealogy to the rasha, that is to the denigration. So they want to say that Ben, the son of Saldu, right? Saldu was not a good guy either. They want to say Zimri wasn't the first bad guy. Apparently his father was also not a good guy. That's what they're saying. It's to a Ganai. Okay. So he says, Nasi Beit Av the Shimoni, and he says this to one of the 5 of the houses that were to the Sheva Levi. Another response for Rashi is Lahodia Shvacho Shel Pinchas, to inform us of the praise of Pinchas. Sha'af al pi shezeh haya nasi, even though this guy was a nasi, a leader, lo mana et atzmo, he did not stop himself in likaneh lichil Hashem, to avenge the chil Hashem lachach hodiyacha katuv mihu hamukeh. So that's why the pasuk tells us who he killed. Okay. Yeah. So then, the name of the woman, B'Shem Isha Hamuka, at Midianite Kazbi Batsor, and the woman that the slain Midianite woman was Kazbi Batsor. Who was she? Rosh Umot Beit Av B'Indianhud. She was the head of the. She was the daughter of the head of the head of the peoples of the father's house in Midian. Okay, that's what it was. So, as it says again, Lo Diacha, why do we have to hear her name? It's bad enough we heard this guy's name. Well, here we have a non-Jewish woman. Why are we hearing her name? What's so big about her? Why do we have to remember her? Lo Diacha sin atan shel Midyanim. To inform us, to inform the reader of the hatred of the Midianites. Why? Shevkiru bat melech, there's note, because the princess was made hefker, ownerless as it were. She was sent out to prostitute herself, all in order to cause the Jews to sin. So if the leader of the people, we understand when the leader of the people sends out the zonot of you have a class, go, you're a zonot, go. Do your job. Do what your main profession is. But when you want to involve your own daughter and get her and to act like a zona, just in order to get the Jews to sin, so that God will punish them. Wow, that shows that you really hate the Jews. Okay? Because you're allowing. No normal father would want his daughter to be put in that situation. That's an abnormal father. And they're saying, but that's how much to show the hatred that the Midianites had. He was one of the heads of it says the head of the nations. So he says there were 5 heads. Rashi explains, Echad Mechamashet Malchi Midian. They were the 5 heads, there were 5 heads to the kings of Midian. Evi, Rekem, Sor, and so on and so forth. And he, according to Rashi, he was the most important of them all. As it says, Rosh Umot, he was the head of the nations, but since he discredited himself by making his daughter into a zona, they counted him 3rd. So even though he was the most important king, because of what he did to his daughter, that's why he was reduced in rank with everybody else and made number 3. You could ask, Why not number 5? If that's the case. But we see he wasn't. Okay. Yeah. So now we go on. That was from last week. Now, Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Lemor. So Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Soror et HaMidianim, harass the Midianites, and then kill them. Okay, he says both. Why? So he gives a whole introduction here. If you look at 17, 2 commandments are contained in this passage. The first is to consider the Midianites as enemies, and to express this by harassing them and causing them distress. The constancy of this commandment is implied by the infinitive form of the word soror, to harass. Thus, it implies an ongoing state of mind rather than instructions to do something tangible at once. The second commandment, v'kitem, and smite them, actually implies actual warfare. Indeed, the people were later dispatched to attack the Midianites to avenge what they had done and the plague that they had caused. Or Chaim explains that the deeper purpose of these commandments was not simply revenge. Under the leadership of Midian, a lust for immoral pleasure and a desire for the worship of Peor had been introduced into the Jewish people. Such desires are very hard to eradicate, as the lust is in constant danger of reemerging. The way to deal with such a danger is to make the people understand what they think of as a tempting pleasure is in reality an enemy, a threat to their very existence. In the case of the Midianites, who had insinuated debauchery and idolatry into the Jewish people, Israel had to become convinced that they had nothing to learn from them, that the Midianites were hateful and should be despised. This is why the Torah calls for a continual spirit of enmity. The task of punishing the Midianites was also necessary, but it did not require a constant state of actual warfare. And he says, then he picks on what everybody picks on. It says, et Midianim, the Midianites, but not the Moabites. Why not the Moabites? You should the Moabites. The Moabites are the ones who hired Bilam, right? So that's why they got everybody involved. So although the Midianite Moabites had played the main role in enticing the Jews, they were excluded from the retribution because Ruth, the ancestress of King David, was destined to descend from Moab. Alternatively, the Moabites acted out of fear, but the Midianites were motivated by sheer hatred. Okay, so you have a whole bunch of reasons why the Midianites are the ones that God says to harass and kill, but not the Moabites. It's an interesting thing, because what we're learning here is that the spiritual attack is worse than the physical attack. That's why when it comes to Hanukkah, we don't have meals, right? Because the Hellenists, the Greeks, weren't trying to wipe us out as a people. They didn't care. We're Jews. Good, you're Israelis, however you want to, whatever, Yehudim, whatever you want to call us. They were just part of that area. You're paying taxes, great. But what we don't want is to have separate religions. They wanted to have everybody under the same religion. Let's make it one big religion, and that's it. So they were trying to wipe us out religiously. That was a spiritual war. So when we defeated them, we didn't say, they didn't declare a feast. They didn't say you can't work. There was nothing like that. They said, we have a spiritual thing. What represents the spirituality? The lighting of the menorah. So light the menorah. That's why we light the menorah. Okay. When it came to Purim, they weren't interested in our conversion. It wasn't a matter of convert or die. It was a matter of die. We want to kill you. So when they wanted to kill us, and then we won, so then we eat, because they were going for our physical bodies. So how do you celebrate the physical thing? You eat. But that's really was the separation as between the Midianites and the Moabites. The Moabites wanted us just away, and the Midianites, as people, they want us away. The Midianites want us away as religion. They weren't interested in that. Let's wipe them out. Okay. That's why they want us to assimilate. They want to assimilate us into what they wanted, and then they wouldn't have minded, I guess. I don't know if they would have killed. This interesting. Would they have killed us? Would the Midianites have killed us if we had just sank into sexual debauchery? Would they have killed us after that, or would they have said, "Okay, no, mission accomplished"? So I don't know. That would also be an interesting question. Now, Hashem explains, why are you going to harass them and kill them? Or because they harassed you through their conspiracy, with that they conspired against you in the matter of Peor, and on the matter of Cosby, the daughter of the prince of Midian, their sister, Hamuka, that was killed on the day of the plague, al devar Peor, in the matter of Peor. So Rashi explains, Ki Eitzor Meim, Shefkiru Benoteim, it was like we said before, they sent their daughters to be zonot, in order to get the people to err against Peor and follow the worship of Peor. Again, the worship of Peor, the rabbis tell us, was you would defecate in front of the idol. Okay, so what they would do, according to the Midrash, is, it's a long process to get there, but the Midrash basically says that they were having, the old lady would sit outside the tent and have a bazaar, and she would be selling their wares. The Jews had already conquered the area. They didn't know what was going on, so they went to the bazaar. You're living there, why not buy something? Fine. So they went there, and the old lady said, you don't like what I have? In the tent there's more stuff. They walk into the tent, they see the beautiful women there who are selling their wares. Okay, beautiful women and beautiful women. So what happens is they now are getting together with them. Then the girls say to them, "Oh, you want to go a little further?" They give them drinks. The Midrash says, is very interesting. The Midrash says, "You want food? You want food? No problem. You take your knife, you shecht it the way you want. You kosher it, make everything good, and then you can eat. And we can eat together." They said, no. And this is the days before that we couldn't drink with anybody, right? At that point, you could drink with people. So, and we can also drink. So they would get them a little drunk. Okay, fine. Men drinks and good-looking women, not a good situation. Okay. So then the girls would entice them a little, and the guys would want to follow up. And so they said, but in order to do that, you have to worship our God. And they, what do you mean worship God? Just go to the bathroom on him. What? Go to the bathroom on him. Okay. The bathroom. Now, so they would do that, and once they did that, they transgressed. Okay. That's as simple as it gets. I know I always quote this, but I remember I was saying this, and there was a conservative rabbi listening to the explanation, and the conservative rabbi's response was, anything to protect men from, it's rabbinics, just to protect men from their stupid sins. They didn't accept the Midrash. But really that's what was going on. In other words, how are you going to convince these people who experienced God? Think about that. You experienced God 40 years ago. You were at Har Sinai. You saw it. You have lived with miracle after miracle. Your life, your daily life is a miracle. You have, again, you're in the clouds. The clouds is surrounding you. The land is level. It's like going through the highways here, level. Okay, it doesn't go up, doesn't go down, even though it is valleys and so on and so forth. Your clothes grow with you. They're always clean. The shoes, nothing. You're getting food. You're getting fowl. You're getting everything. Nothing. You're living an idyllic life. So why would you throw that away? It's only because you want to experience things. I don't know. But it's so that's how they got them. They would get them a little drunk. They would, use halach against them. By the way, that same thing would be used in Purim time. If you look at the Megillah, so he says when King Achashverosh is inviting people to his meal, so he says, let everybody eat the way they want to eat. So the Jews wanted glad kosher. Everybody should have good times, okay? And the fact that people ate it because they would say, okay, the king wants us to eat. Who are we to say no? That was one of their sins too. You don't give in to this sort of thing. So, but that's what was going on. So then it says, and then it's also interesting. It says, "Vahi acharei magifa." It was after the plague. If you turn the page, you'll see this. Okay, it was after the plague. Now here, this is, and he says after these three words. If you look at number 26 at the bottom. After these three words, a new paragraph begins in the Torah scroll. One of the very unusual cases where this happens in the middle of a verse. Okay. According to the Cheskuni, the Torah used this device to emphasize that the deaths that had occurred up to this point were the last ones that would be decreed on that generation. From this point on, those who were to be counted in the forthcoming census would enter the land. Alternatively, this mention of the plague is juxtaposed to verses 17 to 18 above to show that the Midianites were directly responsible for the plague that we talked about. Thus, the sense of our verse. He said, after the plague, which aroused the feeling, that 24,000 Jews were dead, but the Midianites who had caused disaster had escaped retribution. God will command Israel to exact vengeance against the Midianites. So again, once you pick on us, God ultimately is going to get you back. So and before he does that, so we have it says, Vahi acharei magifa, and this was the end. It was after the plague. Vayomer Hashem Moshe v'Elazar ben Aaron Kohen. That Hashem said to Moshe and Elazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen, Lemor, saying, Su'u et Rosh kol adap in Israel, that you're going to count the heads of Bnei Israel, of all the congregation of Bnei Israel, miben Esrim Shana Malah, from 20 years up, the Beit of Adam, according to their father's house, because it's Savav Israel. All of that will go out to the army in Israel. Rashi says in this, where is it? Right. So Rashi says on this whole thing, it starts off Vayim Acharei Magifa, Mashal Leroa. It's a comparable to a shepherd. Shenichnasu ze'evim l'toch edro, that a wolf entered into the mix of its flock, v'hargu behen, and he killed them. The wolves killed these sheep. V'hu moneh, okay. V'hu moneh otan leida minayin hantrod. So now they count them in order to know who's left over. You have to open it. Yeah, thank you. So now you count them in order to know who's left over. Devar acher. Another reason is is Kishiyatzim Mitzrayim. When they left Mitzrayim, but Nifshu to Moshe, and they were given over to Moshe, Nifshu lo binyan. So the people were given over with a number. Achshav, now Shekav lamut. Now it's close to for Moshe to die. Ulahachzir, so no, and to return as were his sheep. Machazrim b'minyan. So he had to give account to. So here Moshe got the people. It's an interesting statement. Moshe got the people with 603,550. Right? That's how many Jews there were on the count. And he's going to return them 40 years later with less. 601,730. So Hashem is going to be able to say to them what happened. Yeah. I gave you all my sheep. What did you do? Okay, we'll have to stop there.